Gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. Welcome to the 9th IHH International Quality Summit. There's a palpable sense of excitement today as we come together for this summit in India for the very first time, and that too in the iconic city of Mumbai, also known as the gateway to India. And all of this to redefine healthcare for a new world. My name is Nikita Singh, and I'm honored to be your host for this event. Mumbai, with its blend of tradition and modernity, is the perfect setting for this summit. Just as this city opens its doors to new opportunities, so too do we stand at the threshold of a transformative era in healthcare. And leading us into this exciting future are two brands under the IHH umbrella with deep roots in Mumbai: Fortis Healthcare and Gleneagles Hospitals, India. Together, they symbolize strength, resilience, and a commitment to care that goes beyond borders. As we embark on this journey of transformation, it's only fitting that we begin by invoking the divine. The ceremonial lamp lighting symbolizes knowledge, purity, and the pursuit of wisdom. May I invite to light this lamp IHH Chairman Tan Shri Dr. Nick Norzul Thani, Board Member Dato Muthana, Board Member Mohammad Shahazwan bin Mohammad Harris, Dr. Prem Nair, Group CEO IHH Healthcare, Mr. Ashok Pandit, Group Chief Corporate Officer, IHH Healthcare, Dr. Ashutosh Raghuvanshi, MD and CEO, Fortis Healthcare, Mr. Anurag Yadav, CEO, Glen Eagles Healthcare India. Thank you, all of you. One of the things that we're going to be discussing going forward is disruption. I think this was a perfect example how we stand strong in the face of disruption. But nevertheless, there's enough light in this room that's going to guide us as we explore the new frontiers of healthcare. Now, to officially kick off this summit, I have the privilege of inviting two dynamic leaders who have been instrumental in putting this event together. Please join me in welcoming on stage Dr. Narayani, the powerhouse business head leading Fortis Mumbai, and Dr. Harish Javalkar, head of medical and quality Gleneagles Hospitals, India, to deliver the welcome note.
Good morning, everybody, and a very, very warm welcome. It is indeed a privilege for both Harish and me today to welcome you all to this 9th International Quality Summit. It is my pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guests, Chairman of IHH, Tan Shri Dr. Nick Nosrul Thani, Senior Directors, Board of Directors of IHH, Senior Directors, Fortis Healthcare, CEOs from different countries and different entities of IHH, our esteemed speakers, and all fellow colleagues from across IHH, both those present here and those who are joining online. A very warm welcome to all of you all, and thank you for being here. This year's summit is particularly pleasurable and important for us because for the first time, this very prestigious event travels to India and happens in this vibrant city of Mumbai. As co-chairs, we are thrilled to see such a diverse gathering of healthcare leaders, innovators, and quality champions from across our global network. Redefining healthcare for a new world, that's the theme. And no better way to start this, and rather than having a very wonderful keynote address by our esteemed Mr. Nandan Nilekani, who will talk about global transformation and with digital transformation. And this will set the tone for all that we are going to discuss in the next 2 days. Throughout this summit, we encourage everybody to engage actively, participate in discussions, and share your experiences, and let's go back richer with a lot of learnings to improve healthcare. Let us remember that our collective goal is care for good. It is to elevate the quality of healthcare, not just with IHH, but across the global healthcare industry. On that note, let me welcome Dr. Harish, my co-chair, to take the invitation forward.
Thank you, Dr. Narayani. I would like to echo her warm welcome to all the dignitaries. We are excited to organize the summit for the first time in India, and I assure you that you would experience the Indian flavor, not just in the food, but also in the summit too. As we all know, India is leading innovations in different sectors. The theme, Redefining Healthcare for the New World, symbolizes this idea of integrating these innovations across sectors for betterment of healthcare. Apart from the keynote address, you will be enlightened by experts from different domains, including space technology, airline sector, hospitality, defense, information technology, and engineering. In healthcare, you would hear from experts on latest updates on contemporary topics such as antimicrobial stewardship, quality, and developments in therapeutic, diagnostic, and preventive healthcare. This summit is also unique in terms of environmental sustainability and clinical laboratory being given the pedestal that they actually deserve. In the age where focus is on artificial intelligence, you would get to hear from an enterprise that values itself and takes pride in running equally efficient systems through years using only natural intelligence and human networking. These insights by doyens in their respective fields will challenge us to think differently and redefine healthcare for a new world. We would like to express our gratitude to the organizing teams of Gleneagles Hospitals and Fortis Hospitals for working tirelessly and bringing this summit to a reality. We invite you to approach these 2 days with an open mind, challenge assumptions, and embrace new ideas that can transform patient care across our network. Thank you all for your esteemed presence and participation, and we look forward to valuable insights and collaborations that will emerge from this summit. Without further ado, I would be delighted to kick off the proceedings of the 9th IHH International Quality Summit. Thank you.
Thank you both for setting the stage for our discussions. We now move from welcoming to visionary thinking. Our first two speakers are individuals who not only see the future, they build it. First, we have the pleasure of hearing from someone who needs no introduction in this room, but certainly deserves one. Dr. Ashutosh Raghuvanshi, the Managing Director and CEO of Fortis Healthcare, has been a key architect in Fortis's rise to becoming a healthcare leader not just in India, but globally. His sharp focus on patient-centered care and innovation has transformed healthcare delivery in India. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Dr. Ashutosh Raghuvanshi.
Thank you, Nikita. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and distinguished colleagues, a very warm welcome to the 9th edition of IHH Healthcare Quality Summit. It is a privilege to have so many of our esteemed professionals here in Mumbai, all united by the shared commitment to elevate the standards of healthcare excellence. I would like to extend a special welcome to our distinguished guests, Mr. Nandan Nilekani, Non-Executive Chairman of Infosys and a visionary in India's digital transformation. I would like to welcome our Chairman, Tansri, Dr. Nick Nazrul, Chairman of IHH, board members of IHH and Fortis Healthcare, and Dr. Prem Nair, our Group CEO. Along with our valued senior management from across the IHH Group, senior clinicians and healthcare experts, your presence today adds great value to this important event. The summit is not just an event, it is a catalyst for change. We will have the opportunity to listen to great minds and leaders from different industries and sectors, offering us valuable perspective and learnings. We will also explore best practices and innovative approaches that can shape the future of healthcare, driving impactful changes in how we deliver care. As we embark on this journey of discovery, I encourage you to actively engage in discussions, challenge assumptions, and share your unique insights. Together, we can unlock new possibilities. I want to thank everyone who made this summit possible, from our organizers to teams working hard behind the scene. Your dedication ensures that we can focus on what truly matters, improving healthcare for all. Thank you all for being here, and I look forward to thought-provoking discussions and groundbreaking ideas that will emerge out of the discussions here. Thank you so much.
Next, we are extremely fortunate to have with us Dr. Prem Nair, Group Chief Executive Officer of IHH Healthcare. Under his leadership, IHH has become synonymous with world-class care, innovation, and an unrelenting focus on patient well-being. With over 3 decades of experience, Dr. Nair's ability to navigate the complexities of global healthcare is nothing short of extraordinary. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Prem Nair.
Thank you. Thank you. There are several speeches on this podium, so I don't want to make the wrong speech. Good morning, everyone. Chairman of IHH Healthcare, Tan Sri Dr. Nick Nozrul, Board Directors of IHH, Fortis, Gleneagles, distinguished speakers, including our keynote speaker, Mr. Nandan Nilekani, fellow colleagues across IHH, and there are many of you who have flown from far and wide to attend this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome everyone to the 9th IHH Quality Summit here in the historical city of Mumbai. This marks my 4th Quality Summit, and I'm very excited that for the first time we are hosting this signature IHH event in India. My sincere thanks to the dedicated organizing team from Fortis and Gleneagles India for jointly taking on this incredible challenge and turning it into an awe-inspiring reality. Every year, our Quality Summit brings together some of our best and brightest quality champions across IHH. It's both humbling and energizing to see all of you gathered here, united in a single mission to redefine healthcare delivery through quality, innovation, and collaboration. At IHH, the patient is at the center of everything we do, and quality is the cornerstone of our healthcare delivery system. It's the foundation upon which we build trust with our patients, their families, and the communities that rely on us every day. Our quality journey at IHH is guided by our ACE framework: align, challenge, and empower, which is our compass to elevate IHH and create value for all our stakeholders. So what's the ACE framework? Firstly, align. We ensure that every part of our global network is in sync with our aspiration to care for good. This alignment allows us to grow sustainably while maintaining high standards of care and clinical outcomes. Challenge. Healthcare is constantly evolving, and it's essential that we continuously push ourselves to innovate and improve, whether through adopting new technologies or refining how we deliver care. In doing so, we aim to set new benchmarks as we navigate the complexities of modern healthcare. Finally, empower. Our people are our greatest assets. By empowering them with the right tools, knowledge, support, and encouragement, we foster an environment where exceptional care and innovative ideas can flourish. So this summit is more than just a meeting. It's our launchpad for transformation. Over the next 2 days, we will explore and discuss new frontiers in healthcare, from innovations in patient care to advancements in operations and technology. We will find new ways to not only meet but exceed the expectations of our patients, their caregivers, and the communities that we serve. So we'll be hearing from industry pioneers and experts, dive into the latest trends, and exchange ideas on how we can keep raising the bar in healthcare quality. Please engage fully. We have many, many interesting sessions. Approach them with a growth mindset, challenge assumptions, and share your unique perspectives. I'm confident that what we learn and create together at this summit will drive meaningful and purposeful change, not just within IHH, but across the broader healthcare industry. Through our collective leadership and vision, we can make healthcare better, more accessible, and more sustainable for everyone. I trust that your dedication, your passion, and your commitment will make this summit a transformative experience for all. Remember, we are not just participants here, we are architects of the future of healthcare. Thank you, and let us make these 2 days truly impactful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now, it is my honor to introduce IHH Healthcare Chairman Tan Shri Dr. Nick Norzul Thani. Under his stewardship, IHH is leading the charge in creating a future where healthcare, as Dr. Nair said, is more accessible, sustainable, and compassionate. Please join me in welcoming Chairman Tan Shri.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Now, distinguished speakers, senior management and dear colleagues from across IHH Healthcare, including those of you who are joining us virtually, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. I am truly excited to be here to welcome each and every one of you to the 9th edition of the IHH Healthcare Quality Summit. As chairman of IHH Healthcare, which I just assumed a few months ago, I'm incredibly proud of the journey you have been embarking on together to set new standards and in healthcare excellence, both within our organization and across the global healthcare community. And doing this in the vibrant city of Mumbai, a city that is not just a hub of world-class healthcare, but a beacon of innovation and excellence. These are the very values that deeply resonate with who we are and what we aim to achieve at IHH. Unfortunately, for me and my wife, Mumbai means Shah Rukh Khan's house. So I know the Shah Rukh Khan house is just a few blocks away, so that's the first place my wife wanted to go to take a selfie to show our family that we've been to Shah Rukh Khan's house. Not Shah Rukh Khan, Shah Rukh Khan's house, but that's good enough for her. Okay. As leaders in healthcare and in all our operating markets, we understand that quality is not just about numbers or metrics. It is about lives. The work we do impacts individuals, families, and entire communities. This summit is a powerful reminder of all our collective responsibility to continuously push the boundaries of what is possible. Through continuous learning, collaboration, and a relentless pursuit of excellence, we can make a healthcare safer, more effective, seamless, and accessible for all. At IHH, quality is at the heart of everything we do. Our network of hospitals, which spans from the Netherlands in Europe to China in Asia, has consistently raised the bar in healthcare. Our goal is simple: to offer healthcare services that is not just good, but exceptional. In doing so, we are living our purpose of touching lives, transforming care. Leading a global healthcare network is not without its challenges, whether it's navigating cross-border healthcare complexities or addressing the unique needs of diverse populations. But through it all, we remain deeply committed to delivering the best healthcare no matter what. This summit gives us a rare and unique opportunity as a global network to dive into fresh ideas, bold strategies, and pioneering innovations that are reshaping healthcare in real time. Hence, the theme, Redefining Healthcare for a New World. I encourage each of you to bring your energy, your ideas, and your passion to the table. Think big, share openly, and work collaboratively. The challenges in healthcare are great, but the opportunities are even greater. And together, we have the power to shape the future of healthcare for future generations. Thank you, and I look forward to the enriching keynotes, discussions, and breakthroughs we will achieve together. Thank you very much.
Thank Thank you, Chairman Tanshri. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in for a true treat. Our next speaker has reimagined how technology can transform the lives of over 1 billion people. He's not just a technologist. He's a visionary who understands the intricate dance between technology and humanity. Mr. Nandan Nilekani, non-executive chairman of Infosys, former chairman of the Unique Identification Authority of India, head of the Technology Advisory Group for Unique Projects, Government of India, is the driving force behind India's revolutionary Aadhaar project. He has not only changed the way we think about technology's role in governance and social development, he has also shown us that technology can be a great equalizer, bridging gaps, simplifying complexities, and changing lives. Today, Mr. Nilekani will share his insights on India's digital transformation and the global perspective, promising to broaden our horizons and challenge the way we think about the future of healthcare. Let's give a big round of applause for Mr. Nandan Nilekani.
Slides up, you think? Huh? Okay. How do you bring it up? Oh, yeah. It's right here. Okay, it's fine. I have a mic. Thank you very much, and it's really a great pleasure to be here at this IHH gathering. I've been a regular seeker of healthcare from Fortis Bannerghatta Road, so I'm very familiar with all of you and have been going there for the last 20 years. So I think it's great to be here with all of you. So today I'll speak about India's digital transformation and how in 15 years there has been a radical change in the way we have applied technology at population scale. And I'll also talk about how it's impacting or could impact healthcare, which is of interest to all of you. So we have essentially come up with an idea of how do we do things at population scale using technology, but in a way that it is inclusive and it allows everyone to participate. And we call this approach as digital public infrastructure. Now, the idea of digital public infrastructure is not new in the sense, if you look at the internet was digital public infrastructure, GPS is digital public infrastructure, but we've extended that idea to many other things which I will talk about. And these, we are calling them as foundational DPIs, which we have built over the last 15 years. Now, it began with the Aadhaar ID. I worked in the government of India for 5 years, from 2009 to 2014. And my goal was to give a unique ID to every Indian resident. And we decided that if we're going to build an ID system in 2009, it should be digital. So it's a digital ID which works online, which allows you to verify and authenticate the identity of a person using their biometrics or demographics or OTP to the phone. And on top of that ID, we also built a KYC, which allowed you to open bank accounts or do mobile connections. So by the time I stepped down from the government in 2014, we had 600 million people with the digital ID. And today we have 1.3 billion people who have the digital ID. And it is used about 80 million times a day. In other words, 80 million times a day, somebody somewhere in India is using his Aadhaar to do an online authentication of identity. So it is pervasive in all applications. But the two big things which happened was the use of the Aadhaar and the KYC or Know Your Customer built on top of this in the banking system and in the mobile industry. So in 2015, the Prime Minister launched the Jan Dhan Yojana program, which is a massive drive to open bank accounts for everybody. And today, about 600 million new bank accounts were opened with Aadhaar KYC. And that is also the basis of direct cash transfer. So India runs the world's largest cash transfer program, has transferred close to $300 billion in the last 15 years into people's bank accounts, and does millions of transactions every month. All of it is in real time. It transfers directly into the account. And the same is used in the in-kind distribution like PDS and so on. And you're able to have a national interoperable public distribution system because you can use Aadhaar authentication. Similarly, in the mobile industry, especially with the launch of Jio in 2016, we are able to dramatically change the mobile industry. We had a very modern 4G network. Prices of data crashed to among the lowest in the world. Mobile phone prices crashed. So essentially, you can think about by 2016, everybody had billion IDs. Most people had a bank account, most people had a mobile connection. And this concept of mobile ID and bank account were the fundamental digital infrastructure for doing everything, including healthcare. Then in 2016, we designed something called UPI, or Unified Payment Interface. This was done by the National Payment Corporation of India. It's a not-for-profit company set up by the Reserve Bank. Its headquarters are about 1 kilometer from here. And they built all the payment systems in India, including UPI. I'm an advisor to NPCI. And UPI is the world's largest digital payment system. It does about 14.4 billion transactions a month. It has 500 million users, and it has 50 million merchants where payments are made using UPI. So UPI has transformed the payments of India. So essentially, over the last several years, everything has become digitally enabled. Everybody has a digital ID, everybody has a phone, everybody has a bank account, everybody can make payments, everybody can transfer money to their families from the cities. All this is now built on a digital infrastructure at population scale. This is for 1 billion plus people. Similarly, a lot of the single market has also been enabled by technology. As you know, India has created a GST system. The GST system allows a single point of indirect tax payment, so you pay your goods and service tax at the same time. This is fully automated. So behind this is a company called GSTN, which runs India's GST system, and all the 12 billion companies on the GST system are paying their taxes electronically. And similarly, we have a national system of FASTag, 2.5 billion transactions, so that we have smooth movement of trucks and so on. So everywhere there is technology which is pervasive. Both are, not only our indirect tax system, GST is fully automated. India's income tax is also fully automated. So everybody files income tax returns online, and people get their refunds in 3 days. So it's a very modern income tax system. So both the direct and indirect tax systems are fully modern. And then we have something called DigiLocker. So you can now keep all your documents on your phone. So most people keep their driver's license, their Aadhaar card, their vaccination certificate, everything on the phone. And now close to 300 million people use this. So essentially, on your phone, you can keep all your documents. When you go to the airport, you can show your driver's license from your phone, and you can use UPI on your phone for payments. So everything is out there. We also have one of the world's largest systems of QR codes for education. The government has launched a program called Diksha, which allows for online education. And we have something like 600 million textbooks printed every year, and each of them has QR codes for every topic. So there are about 12 billion QR codes, and you can use any phone to access content on any topic on the textbook. So we are using that in education. Now, in the area of healthcare, a lot of the work has been done in the public sector. So it's really much more a public sector driven initiative. In fact, coincidentally, today is the 3rd anniversary of the Ayushman Bharat digital mission, which was set up to bring digital technology to healthcare. And they have done a number of things. The first is the concept of a digital health ID. So because we didn't want to use Aadhaar as the ID for health, they developed a digital health ID, and that has now been issued to 670 million people. 670 million people have a digital health ID issued by the system. And one of the use cases is OPD scan and share, which allows, this is all mainly done in the public sector hospitals. This has been used by 50 million patients to improve access when they enter the hospital, to cut down the queues and so on. And this is based on the ABBA Health ID. This is not used much by the private sector, but I see no reason why you cannot use this to improve the customer experience when customers come to your hospitals. So I think a good use is an extension of this scan and share in the private sector, which you may want to look at, because it will improve the consumer experience when they enter your hospital. The other important thing is India has an architecture for data sharing, where the data is with the person, and we call this as the account aggregator infrastructure. And essentially, account aggregators are acting on your behalf, getting your records. This is a financial application. So getting your financial record from the bank and give it to a lender to get money. But this architecture is not limited to finance. This can be used in healthcare also. And this will allow you to create interoperable healthcare records, which will expand the reach of healthcare to everybody, where instead of banks, you'll have hospitals or diagnostic clinics or ECG machines or whatever, and you can share your data with a service provider or with a specialist. So this is based on this account aggregator system. There is something called Unified Electronic Health Record. Design has been done to create interoperable health records, which will allow everyone to participate easier in the healthcare system. So already the account aggregator system in the banking sector has done huge number of transactions, and more than 1 billion pulls have happened. But the same system is now being applied on the health side. And this has enabled a lot of new companies, and India has created a huge startup ecosystem built on top of this infrastructure. We call this public rails and private innovation. So you build public rails at population scale for everyone to use. On top of that, you can have private innovation. This is just one example of a company which is providing small insurance by ensuring, getting payments every day. Now this idea of digital public infrastructure is now gaining global acceptance, and now there's a move to take this to many countries, and more than 13 countries are designing some version of DPI, and we think our goal is to get this approach of technology to 50 countries in 5 years. Another important thing is what we call as open network DPIs, or how do you build open networks? And I'll give an example of that, because what is happening in India and maybe in elsewhere is we have a very fragmented economy where there are millions of small retailers, there are many educational boards, there are thousands of farmers, smallholder farmers, and you can't bring them all into one system. But if you can connect them together with a protocol, then you're able to make it much more efficient. So we are doing that across the board in many sectors, and among them is in healthcare. there is now something called UHI, a Unified Health Interface, which allows you to create interoperable health servicing. To give an example, if you use UHI, today, for example, if you look at Indian consumers, they are huge users. They have 400 million people use WhatsApp, 400 million people use PhonePe, a few hundred million people use Google search, etc. You can use this UHI to connect these. Is again run by a non-profit called ONDC. It does about 12 million transactions a month. We have open commerce in mobility. So this is a new way of doing mobility. The driver is paid directly by the consumer, not through an aggregator. And it's also being applied in energy to allow, because it's all about data. Because AI, the models are going to be commodities. It's all going to be about data. And India has huge amount of data, digital data that has come out of its entire last 15 years, which can be harnessed for AI. So we have working on how to make this architecture which allows people to grow. For example, we have now something called Bhashini. One of the challenges in India is, and it's true elsewhere, is how do we handle multiple languages? Because India has 22 official languages and several hundred languages. And we created a public good called Bhashini, which has created the language data for all Indian languages, free to use. So if you're building a healthcare application and you want it to be accessed in multiple Indian languages, you can build it on top of this open source AI data. So that again is a way to create a market usage of data. In this case, it's healthcare, and it's also based on collecting very accurate, relevant samples of data, because unless the data collected is of high quality, the AI will not be of high quality. So they're actually collecting around the country samples of how people speak in different languages, how they mix languages, and so on. So all that is being published as a public good. Now, what are the other areas? So, which allows people to come to you through different channels and access your services, which I think will lead to a huge expansion and at a very low cost of health services to everybody. And there are many other things like that which are happening. One last thing I'll leave you with is the National Health Exchange. The National Health Claims Exchange should be going live in the next few months. It's a joint project of the IRDA, which is the insurance regulator, and NHA with the National Health Authority. So they're launching the National Health Claims Exchange, which will be connected to all the insurers, all the hospitals, all the TPAs. And that should dramatically reduce the time and process of settlement of insurance claims, which I think is good news, because it should reduce the float and reduce the paperwork to do this whole thing. So this is again something which will be of benefit to all the hospitals. This National Health Claims Exchange applies both for private insurance schemes, government insurance schemes, central, CGHS, everything is covered in this. So this also will allow more hospitals to participate in more of the schemes. And because the claim processing is digital and straight-through processing, it will take less time, less paperwork, faster realization. So I think this is going to be a big thing happening here. So I think to end by saying that over the last 15 years, India has used a new model of economic activity and social growth by creating digital ID for everyone, by making mobile phones very cheap, data very cheap, by enabling everyone to have a bank account, by making payments very simple, doing all these things. All these things are actually contributing to both economic growth as well as inclusion, because everybody is now part of the system. Just to give you one example of what's happening on inclusion, India's taxes are rising faster than GDP. Our GDP growth in nominal terms about 13%, but our taxes are climbing at 20%. And the reason is all the people are becoming formal, all the businesses are becoming formal, Technology is being used for fraud detection. Everybody is filing returns digitally. So suddenly you have much better people participating. And that's helping the finances of the country. So all that is possible because of the technology built here. So this has accelerated digitization, transactions, and adoption. And we now think that on this infrastructure, applying it to healthcare, education, livelihoods, it will make a big difference. And AI will be used across the board to further improve the quality and access of services to 1 billion people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. This is a golden opportunity for us to ask him questions. So please raise your hand, and we have a colleague here who will help you out with a mic, and you can ask your questions.
What was the meaning of replacing alphabet N by FI in your presentation? In your presentation, the alphabet N was replaced by FI.
No, there's some issue here on the projection. It's not on the slides.
Okay.
Any other question? I see a hand back there. Can we please help the gentleman with a mic?
Thank you, sir. My question is regarding the security, the data security and the transactions and the fraud which are going on. So how we address these issues, particularly the privacy of the patients and the data?
Yeah. So obviously, I think there are 2-3 different issues. One is privacy, and certainly in the Aadhaar design as well as the electronic healthcare design, a lot of care has been taken to ensure that privacy is there in the architecture. For example, the Aadhaar ID doesn't collect any data on you. It only gives a verification of ID and so on. So a number of things like that. Security, again, number of things are being done for security. The challenge is on fraud it's often not technology fraud, it's phishing fraud where people are misled. And when you make something as simple to use as this, it also means somebody will exploit it and create fraud. That is really about user education, because people are getting, defrauded by random calls or somebody saying there's a crisis, send money. So that you can't solve that with technology. That we have to solve in other ways. But at the scale of what we're doing, you're talking about 1.3 billion people have digital ID. 600 million people are receiving DBT in their bank account. 500 million people are doing UPI payments. These are, at that scale, it's quite decent that it's working as well as it is.
I wanted to ask you, 15 years ago, you spoke about the demographic dividend. And I think it was a fantastic idea. It changed my thinking. But how much of it we've been able to achieve? I mean, have we achieved it? Or are we 10%, 20%, 50%? Where are we?
I mean, it's a work in process. I mean, you're lucky that you still have a young, growing population, and you'll only start declining by 2040. So we will have India will have the next 25 years to take advantage of the demographic, unlike, say, in China, where the aging has already started in a big way. But I think but that requires many more things to happen. It requires education, skilling, ease of doing business, job creation, and so on. So it's a larger issue, but definitely many of the things we have done already have enabled more people to participate in the economy because more people are joining the system, getting a bank account, starting a small business, using their digital infrastructure, data to get loans. So we have put in infrastructure to essentially allow everyone to participate. But Whether they will participate is a larger issue of demand creation and skilling and all that.
So our demographic shift, which we obviously have, from the 23 years you spoke about, has it moved to 30, 35, 40 now?
No, it's still below 30.
It's still below
but the total fertility rate is dropping, as you know. In fact, the southern India is at negative rates of fertility in terms of replacement rate. So today most of the births are happening in the north and the east. So there's also a demographic distribution is different between south and west, which have lower fertility, and north and east which are higher fertility, which is why there's so much of migration happening from the north to the south or from the east to the west.
Thank you, thank you.
Is it on? Good morning, sir. I'm here, right? Yeah. Thank you for the wonderful talk and the great contribution that you have made to the country. It was a great talk. My question is regarding the Aadhaar identity. We are involved in transplant surgeries, which involve hand transplant or something like a face transplant, which changes the identity and the biometrics of the person. So our transplant recipients have faced this problem that their fingerprints are no longer there in the system, and the new fingerprints that they have got belong to somebody who is already deceased or who is their organ donor. So how do we rectify this problem?
Well, you know, that's why we have multiple biometric types. You can do Aadhaar authentication with fingerprint or iris or face. So now most devices will be able to do face and fingerprint. So I think in that case they will use some other biometric to do the authentication. And they can re-register their biometrics. They can re-register the fingerprints.
I guess that has to come as an amendment that the older biometric has to be erased and the newer has to come in so that there's no duplication.
Right. For transplants, you'll have to do that.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Your work as the architect of Aadhaar has been truly outstanding. My question is more mundane. As a customer of Banerghatta Road, you've definitely experienced some of the friction points. What is your advice? Which are the one or two quick wins that we should focus on fixing using technology?
Well, I think certainly the consumer experience can be streamlined, I think. The thing is, these hospitals have such a high volume of patients, and a lot of them are milling around because they don't know what to do. So if there's a way to streamline that end-to-end experience from the time you reach to the time you leave, I think that whole customer journey can be amplified with a better digital approach.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning, sir.
I can't see with
so
these lights.
Yes, sorry. Thank you so much for what you've done for India. We are very, very proud. I wanted to check, when UIDAI started, a lot of people had a lot of doubts, whether it will become successful, what we will be able to do. Transformation always comes with change, and the change management is difficult. For you, what do you think were the challenges in adoption? And even today they remain, right? So what are the key things that you do to make sure that people adopt the new thinking, new way of doing things? Thank you.
Well, I find that India actually is a very quick adopter of useful technology. We are seeing that every day in everything that people do. Today we are already probably the largest user of consumer AI because everybody's using an app in which there's AI built in. And so we have never really faced a challenge of convincing people to use it. If you have to give a very clear value proposition on how it's going to make their life simpler, how it's going to reduce their transaction cost, how it will reduce. For example, I'll give an example. We built a national system of cash dispensation through business correspondence. And today we have about few 100,000 places where somebody can go and withdraw money from their bank account. So earlier a guy had to walk a long distance to the district bank and get money. Now he can just go a few 100 meters and get money from a business correspondent. There's a dramatic change in his productivity and efficiency. And also the philosophy of public rails and private innovation means that while we put in these rails, many private innovators are building very useful applications on top of that, and that's also driving adoption. So today the market value of companies set up on top of this infrastructure is about $100 billion. In other words, so many companies have been created which use this below the hood to deliver services, and they focus on giving better services, and that then drives adoption.
We have time for the last two questions, please. Make the most of it. I see, yeah.
So, sir, with regards to the adoption of technology, can you share some ratio or percentage of adoption among the senior citizens? Because when it comes to ground reality, we see that the senior citizens are a bit difficult or they find it challenging to adopt it. Is there any plan in future to make it user-friendly for the senior citizens?
Well, you know, the general design principle we have is every transaction should be possible either self-service or assisted. What that means is that for those who are comfortable using the device to access a service, they can do it on their phone. But for those who are less comfortable, they can go to a human being who will do their service for you. So the whole idea, for example, of a business correspondent is you go to them and they withdraw money for you. Or a customer service center, you go there and they will issue something for you. So all the services are designed for both self-service and assisted. And therefore, those who are less comfortable with technology will likely go to an assisted model. Today, for example, if you look at pensions, all pensions in India are delivered electronically. And there's something called a liveness certificate. You have to prove that you're alive to get your pension. Earlier, people had to go somewhere to give it. Now, somebody goes with a device to their home, does an Aadhaar authentication using face, and confirms they're alive. So that person doesn't touch the technology. Somebody comes to them and gives them the service.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. So that was a amazing presentation, an eye-openers for opening for all of us. We are very lay for this as doctors. I have a little doubt as a lay person. The general dictum that we find that whatever is digital is hackable. So a few weeks back or months back, we had a problem with Microsoft and the airlines were all shut. Now, how much are you as the creator worried about this, and what is the backup that you have? Because if everything gets digital, we are a little scared.
No, I totally agree with you. I think the more, and frankly, that problem that happened was not even hacking, it was a mistake.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it could be a mistake or it could be hacking. Yeah, it is definitely something, and when we design all these things, a lot of thought and care has to go into making it private, making it secure, making it impenetrable, having tools to keep an eye on people trying to get in and all that. But yes, these risks are there. You have to minimize these risks. But everything is about trade-offs. Finally, what is the benefit versus a potential cost? And I think the benefit we have seen across the board. I mean, today 500 million Indians do payments with UPI. The vegetable vendor is selling vegetables and getting paid with UPI. Her life has changed. So I think we have to always do a trade-off between benefits and make sure the costs are minimized. But I agree with you, the risks are there.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. So before you leave the stage, I'd like to invite Dr. Prem Nair to please present you with a little token to mark your presence at the summit.
I just want lifetime subscription at Fortis here.
you very much, sir.
That, of course.
We will take your advice to do this in private healthcare. Okay. This is to... This is a Malay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Nandan. Thank you, Dr. Nair. We are in a world that is changing rapidly, and disruption is no longer a possibility. It's a certainty. Let me quote Mr. Nilekani. He once said, "The future is not something we enter. The future is something we create." Well then, it's now time to take a deep dive into the future of healthcare delivery and set the stage for its creation. I'm excited to introduce a powerhouse panel that promises to embrace disruption, to build a healthcare system that is more resilient, innovative, and patient-focused. I think we'll have to allow the team to quickly set up the chairs before I invite the panelists. Perfect. May I request the tech team to please put on the background slide? And we'll know in a minute why. Perfect. So this becomes my responsibility, but a very gentle request. I'm going to be inviting everyone on stage. It would be absolutely wonderful if you pick the chair that corresponds to your picture and your description. Thank you so much. We've suffered a little bit of a confusion yesterday, but let's see if we can try and do that. Thank you so much. And now for the proper invitations. Dr. Prem Nair, Group CEO of IHH Healthcare. whose leadership is guiding one of the largest healthcare networks in the world. Mr. Ashok Pandit, Group Chief Corporate Officer at IHH Healthcare, whose keen business and strategic acumen has been instrumental in IHH's growth. Dr. Keith Lim, Group Head of Medical and Quality at IHH Healthcare, whose expertise ensures that quality and safety remain at the forefront of patient care. Dr. Ashutosh Raghuvanshi, Managing Director and CEO of Fortis Healthcare India, a visionary who continues to push the boundaries of healthcare innovation. Mr. Anurag Yadav, CEO of Gleneagles Healthcare India, who is building Gleneagles' reputation as a healthcare leader in the region. And moderating this high-powered panel is none other than Ms. Ekta Batra, the editor of Healthcare and Pharmaceuticals at CNBC TV 18. I was going to say, please welcome her on stage, but she's already done the job for me, so welcome. So let's join this panel as they dive into the disruptions shaping tomorrow's healthcare and hear how they envision creating a new healthcare future.
Just checking if this is working. Yeah, it's working. Well, welcome to this panel. It's quite a high-powered panel. Our discussion for today is basically rethinking healthcare delivery, embracing disruption and shaping the future. So I'm just going to start with you, Dr. Nair. We're going to delve right into the topic. We live in a world where we probably need innovation, and that's probably the need of the hour. We have rising healthcare costs. We have unequal access to care, not only in India, but globally, and workforce shortages in terms of doctors and nurses, and aging population. In that context, how do you define innovation and disruption in today's healthcare delivery landscape, and how important is it?
Thank you, Ekta. So, I think we have been talking about innovation and disruption for a long time. When I was a junior doctor, we spoke about disrupting healthcare. There was a professor from Harvard, I think it was Clayton Christensen, who spoke about disruption. He's passed on now, and we still haven't done any disruption in healthcare. And there are several reasons for it. The answer to your question is absolutely, it's very important, and that's why we have chosen this topic. It's absolutely important, but we have got to fix a few things. Firstly, I will tell you as a physician, the people in healthcare are generally very suspicious of disruption. They prefer to do things the way it has always been done. The nurses touch, the doctors examining the patient and all that. The whole world has moved on, but the people who work in healthcare prefer to do that. Actually, healthcare, as I keep saying, is not an uninnovative industry or not a high technology industry, right? Fortis has just installed some machines which are state of the art. We've installed a proton beam machine in Mount Elizabeth, Novena. These are what I would really call cutting edge technologies, but it is used in delivering the care to the patient, the treatment to the patient. But the patients today still sit in waiting rooms for a long time. They go to a counter for admission. They still get paper laboratory results. Some of that is changing. There are many, many hospitals that still do not have an electronic medical record. So while we talk about disruption and innovation in the way, if yesterday, those of you at yesterday's session, I think we've got to fix some of the basic things in healthcare. Patient-centric healthcare means putting the patient in the center of everything we do. Today, I would actually say we put the physician at the center of healthcare.
And not the patient.
The patient.
So should it become more patient-centric?
Oh, absolutely.
And
But
how are we doing that? You said that we need to get the basics right. Is there any healthcare system in the world where the basics are probably better than the others, or is there a fundamental problem across healthcare across the world?
No, I think there are multiple examples. There's a hospital in, US is, so I always say US has the best of healthcare and the worst of healthcare, right? Some of the best healthcare organizations are in the US, right? I mean, the Mayo Clinics, Intermountain Healthcare, these are the good examples. Kaiser Permanente that has reduced the size of its 1,000-bed hospitals to 200 or 300-bed small facilities, very patient-centric, moved a lot of their care out into ambulatory centers. And I'm sure we'll talk about ambulatory care because I think that's one of the big mega trends in healthcare at the moment. But there are, and we have to learn from some of these examples.
So in terms of fixing the basics, what would the priorities be?
So I think first of all, we need better patient engagement, right? Today, frankly, a patient doesn't have to go to a healthcare facility for, I would dare say, even 80% of his care. You can actually access it from the home, through a clinic nearby, through an app, through telemedicine. You only go to the hospital if you're going to be admitted for surgery. But we still make patients come back to the hospital for almost everything that we dish out to them, right? So I think we should do that. I just want to quote a story which I heard recently through one of our consultants. We are doing a big, huge transformation project. So he told me the story of this US healthcare company where the CEO walked into a waiting room and saw it was packed, crowded, no waiting space. And he told the CEO of that facility, can you please fix this problem? 6 months later, they invited him back to come and see the situation. And they had expanded the waiting room by 3 times so that there would be more space for the patient. And then he threw a fit. And he said, I asked you to eliminate waiting, not to increase the waiting space. And today you can actually do that. There's so many things you can do to cut back on waiting, right? Yeah. But, if you look at our hospitals, they are all still full of waiting rooms.
Okay, well, Dr. Pandit, I wanted your thoughts on what has changed when it comes to disruption and innovation post-COVID-19, because that's really where the boom of innovation took place, changes in terms of tech, in terms of, say, less, maybe even preventive healthcare. So what has changed when it comes to disruption in healthcare post-COVID-19? What are the learnings that we are implementing today or we need to implement?
I think one of the biggest things that came up very quickly was telemedicine, teleconsult. That theme really picked up during the COVID times. And I think that theme is still continuing. And like Dr. Nair said, that ultimately our aim also is to see if more and more patients can be seen outside the main sort of hospitals. Whether it's through telemedicine, whether it's through ambulatory facilities, whether it's through the GP, so that the pressure on the main hospital keeps on coming down. That's the best way to improve efficiency. In healthcare, we talk about 3 things, and 3 things all the time: access, quality, at an affordable price. And I think this is where innovation is now, post-COVID, playing a very, very important role in addressing some of these elements. To my mind, also the second element is prevention. Prevention through early detection. And I think there again, innovation is playing a very, very key role because we've now got a number of diagnostic tests to be done. You've got wearable devices which monitor your health in a much sort of a better manner. So innovation in diagnostics is playing a dual sort of a role. First, in early detection, which means more testing, mass testing would mean you know what you may have at an early stage or what you may get, right? That's one. Second is more advanced testing, which our labs do, which is genomic testing, which means when it comes to predicting what may happen to you, that's one. Second, when you have dealing with something more like cancer, then be able to apply precision medicine to get quicker, faster, recovery for you. So innovation is playing, a big, big role. Now, you're absolutely right to say this has definitely picked up post-COVID. We at IHH Healthcare, we've made multiple investments in some of these healthcare startups. Telemedicine one, liquid biopsy another, We got an investment in a sleeping, disorder, app. So we are doing our part when it comes to making sure that ultimately our patients benefit. Dr. Nair already talked about we probably are leaders when it comes to big capex, like a proton beam or MRI LINAC, but there are multiple things to be done. And I think, to my mind, innovation is going to play a central role in improving healthcare delivery and hopefully reducing cost as well.
Well, there were certain themes which picked up post-COVID-19, say something like telemedicine, virtual care. Has it accelerated or has it taken a step back? Because that's a form of innovation in healthcare.
So yes, we did see a part where the curve went up and then it's flattened, and maybe in some parts it's coming down, because some patients do always feel, okay, let's go back to the OPDs. But the fact is, if we are talking about access, especially in the context of India, right, outside the big metro cities, it's still very useful, or if you're in a big city like Mumbai or Delhi where you have to commute for 45 minutes an hour, and if you've got a small issue like a fever or a cough or a cold, telemedication is still something very useful for patients. And now with that, you have pharmacies or e-pharmacies. So for a patient, unless you really want to get a touch and feel of the doctor, can get a lot of things done, in your own comfort of home. And this has also now gone further because home care is becoming something which is essential, part of what most hospital offers to their patients.
Dr. Lim, I wanted your thoughts on this. If you could just give us a sense in terms of how technological advancements such as, say, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, is actually helping in terms of the innovation and the disruption in healthcare. Specific examples, if you have any.
You're asking about how this new innovation has improved healthcare. As to echo what Ashok said, it's really along the lines of quality and maintaining affordability to the patients. Now, in healthcare, as Dr. Prem said, we may be slow to adopt some of these new innovations. And while on one hand, it's because we're used to doing things the way we are doing. Patients are used to touch, feel of the doctor. They know what they expect and they're comfortable with that. That's the trust that they have. And so I think the way we are adopting a lot of these new innovations may be slow, but it's actually because we're cautious. When it comes to healthcare, we have to realize that there's a lot at risk. The patient's lives, the complications are all at risk. So when we adopt these new things like robotic surgery, AI, new innovations, we have to understand the value of it. What is the quality that they bring on top of what we're already doing? How do they help us to be more efficient and more effective? And at the same time, given that the high cost of healthcare, and that healthcare cost is one of the rigorous problems that all governments and all people are facing around the world, what is the cost of implementing this new technology and how does it help? So when we look at, like, say, the robotic surgery, which is the big thing nowadays, we've seen it was slow to adopt initially because of the barrier to entry. But over time, it has proven to be beneficial to the patients in terms of improving the quality, shorter lengths of stay, less blood loss, faster recovery times. Definitely, it may be more costly in the short term to the patient because you are employing expensive new technology to do an operation. But over a period of time, so the cost of care cannot just be measured at that one instance, but over what we call a cycle of care. The robot is worth it because patients have less readmissions for complications. They recover better, they're more productive, they get back into society faster. So these are ways that when we look at innovation and we look at them in terms of quality, cost, and affordability, we have to understand what we're actually measuring and what is the cost that's incurring. And so when we bring in AI in the future, and we're really looking at it cautiously because we can't afford to make mistakes, but it is coming in slowly in very useful areas like pattern recognition in the terms of radiology, where we're able to cut down manpower, increase the throughput, so patients get their answers and their x-rays read faster. And also in the terms of what I do for a living, which is oncology, we've seen AI help us to do predictive work to understand which patients benefit from which drugs. And as we look at radiation oncology in particular, AI helps us to adapt radiation on a daily basis. So these are areas I see that where innovation has helped really and push the next boundaries of medicine.
How expensive is it?
It is expensive in the short term. Until we can scale up certain things, it will always be expensive. But as I said, when we look at cost of care, we have to understand, and this is something that we struggle with our payers, struggle with governments and the patients, that you have to look at care not just at this episode, but above the cost of the throughput. It could be years, it could be months, but that's what we need to measure the cost of care in. So short-term pain for long-term gain.
Dr. Raghuvanshi, you know, we are talking about innovation, but India has the highest, one of the highest out-of-pocket expenditures when it comes to healthcare. It's reduced, but it's still one of the highest in the world. In that sense, how important is disruption in healthcare delivery in order to increase accessibility in the Indian healthcare diaspora?
I think one of the things which is unique to India is that there are two Indias, and one of them can afford private health care, and there are no questions of pricing over there. But there is a large portion of our population which is economically disadvantaged and cannot afford out-of-pocket expense. So I think it is very imperative for the public healthcare system to fill that vacuum. But it cannot be done in the traditional way. So that's where the importance of disruption, technological interventions, etc. becomes very, very important. We had the keynote where Mr. Nilekani was suggesting about, he was describing the digital mission, the unified ID, Aadhaar ID, the digital medical records and things like that, interoperability. I think these things are going to be very important, because currently in the system what happens is that patients are paying out of pocket. They go to multiple places for diagnostic, and before they actually come for therapeutic part of the treatment, they have already exhausted all their resources. So if there is a unified system, then the wastages which are happening in the current system will go away. That's one simple thing. So I think technology is going to play a very, very important role, because if we see the amount of monies which are being spent by the developed countries and we extrapolate that to our population, we will never be able to address our healthcare problems. So it is very, very important that we find different solutions. And when we talk about different solutions, it has to be something where technology plays an important role. Telemedicine is certainly one of the important tools, but there are several other measures, like for example, teleradiology, telepathology, where diagnosis can be made by specialists who are sitting far away. So I think these changes are going to play a very, very important role. Today in India, about 29% to 30% beds are in the private sector, and the rest are still in the public sector. The upgradation of public sector becomes very important as well. And that's where the government would probably have to play a role as a payer. But I think unless until we reduce the wastages in the system by using technology and creating something like what we have done in the fintech and other areas, we will not be able to afford what we need to provide to our people.
The other thing is that, like you mentioned, most of the innovation is probably with private healthcare now. You all, for example, got 6 robots in the past 2 to 3 years in your hospitals. The problem is affordability, even for those who are paying out of pocket. Innovation is becoming unaffordable or very expensive. The difference between a regular surgery and a robotic surgery is maybe around 2x. But in that sense, how do we change innovation, or how do we make innovation affordable to the Indian population?
So in Indian context especially, a lot of indigenization of equipment is happening. You might be aware that there is an Indian company which is making robots, and those robots are being used in institutions like All India Institute of Medical Sciences and many private hospitals as well, We have also done a kind of a pilot project with that and found it to be very, very effective. Now, that does one thing, that the capital expenditure comes down. But the second part, which is the consumables, I think that is a very vibrant industry in India. And with all the recent PLI measures, etc., which have happened, because of that, the costs of the consumables in general is coming down. And that is going to help as well. The number of cases, as we do more and more, that also brings the price down. Like, for example, in one of our hospitals in Mohali, we do close to about 200 cases, robotic cases in a month. It's practically working 24 hours a day. So that kind of workload, also utilization of the equipment, is very, very important in Indian context, because we have large population, large need. So that makes the relative cost for a patient. And the other thing which is important in robotics especially is, as Dr. Keith was saying, that the episode of care. So the entire cycle of care which happens, that gets shortened, the pain goes down, the chances of complications are less, and the recovery is much faster. Patient becomes ambulatory practically the same day. So all that also saves money. So eventually, but I think indigenization of the equipment as well as the consumables is going to play a major role.
Mr. Yadav, you know, there is this petition which is pending in the Supreme Court where there could be a possible regulating of healthcare or hospital rates in India. Do you think that would probably put innovation to a standstill, especially even for private healthcare, because you probably have regulated rates and hence you might not be able to afford the innovation?
I don't think so. That's going to happen in near future, because look, we are a vast country, right? And the problem are humongous in this country. I think while one side innovation is happening, the cost of treatment is coming down, I think we have to look at various models which are going to be helping the country, because disease burden is going up year after year. I think I think government has to look at public-private partnership, because if we are turning to be 3 billion economy by end of this year, and we are looking at 7 billion economy in 6 years' time, the healthcare has to move to every nook and corner of the country. Today, the government is payer as well as provider, right? Public sector has to move from provider to payer services. I think that's the goal, because expertise lies with private sector. Secondly, I think, as my co-panelist said, I think technology-based solutions will be one which is going to help the country in a very long way, because a lot of disease burden and the barriers of geographical differences, like barriers, like a lot of areas which are far-flung, can be reached by technology-based solutions. Thirdly, I think as a country, what we're looking at is a deep penetration, micro-insurance, deep penetration across the length and breadth of the country. I think that's very much required, because the more and more insurance penetration happens, the coverage and affordability will be there. And lastly, I think looking at the current state of healthcare in India, I think there's a need to put care back in healthcare, right? And that will only happen once we, as a country, as all public-private players, we focus on preventive healthcare. That's very, very key. Mass screening, preventive healthcare is required, because otherwise today the healthcare only starts once you hit the disease. I think we have to go back the clock and start from a different point. That's my sense. Thank you.
Dr. Nair, I just wanted to come to you about this preventive healthcare. This is something we spoke about briefly yesterday as well. Do you think that's going to be the next leg of innovation, preventive healthcare, and how scalable is it for a population such as India, where you need to get mass screening done?
Well, I think preventive healthcare is absolutely important, right? And I use the example of India. We were discussing this topic. In most hospitals, cardiology used to be one of the top specialties, right? Simply because Indians genetically, diet-wise and all that, there's a high preponderance of cardiac disease. For many years now, we have stepped up screening, right? In most countries, India as well, I'm sure. Ashutosh is probably the best person to talk about this, but by screening for cholesterol, screening for other risk factors like hypertension, diabetes, and controlling or eliminating these, you have seen a significant drop in cardiac disease. And now, all hospitals are scrambling to set up oncology facilities, which is now the new thing as well. Now, oncology is a multifactorial disease. There are many reasons for it, but one of it is also, diet is one of the major causes of gastrointestinal cancer, smoking. If you bring all these things down, cancer rates come down as well, right? The statistics for cancer is absolutely scary. Yeah. So I think very important. Most of the countries that IHH operates in has got very effective screening programs. Singapore in particular has come up with a strategy called Healthier SG, which has got many facets, one of which is pushing care to the community, but the second is screening. It allows every Singaporean to go to their primary care doctor, government pays for a basic screening package.
Dr. Raghuvanshi, what about preventive healthcare in India? Do you think that that's a scalable model, and are we seeing it implemented at all? And even if it's implemented, is it only for the affluent and the affording?
Yeah, no, I think there are a lot of very encouraging models. And I think I always remember the way we did the Pulse Polio program. That shows that India has the capability of doing a massive preventive health program. And now government has taken up a lot of new vaccines, HPV vaccine, for instance, to prevent the cervical cancer in adolescent girls is being implemented. So I think those kind of programs can be done for preventive in India as well. And I think that's where our vaccine industry and all is going to play a very, very important role by producing that kind of mass scale of vaccines. At the same time, some of the screening programs, especially for cancer, as Dr. Prem was saying, the incidence of cancer is increasing and more people are suffering and the cost of treatment at the later stages becomes high. So I think early diagnosis is as important as, of course, prevention is best, but early diagnosis is the second best thing. So those screening programs, there are many screening programs which are happening. A lot of companies have adopted these as their CSR projects. So cervical screening is one program which is happening in many parts of the country. Fortis is conducting that in 3 districts in the aspirational districts in Haryana and UP as well. And I think that India can certainly do a mass preventive health program. I have confidence in that.
Pandit, how much will the PNL benefit for a hospital with innovation? How much can, say, technology reduce costs?
I think the best way to think about this is technology will help us improve healthcare quality, healthcare delivery, which would basically have a positive impact on the bottom line as well. That's the way we think about it. Ultimately, our goal is to have better patient outcome. And if we have better patient outcome, the results are clearly viable. Then if you come through the cost side, just process standardization will help us immensely in terms of our cost management. So that's where technology plays quite an important role. So there are many aspects in which technology plays a role. But you're raising a good question. When we are thinking of technology, that's not the first thing that comes to our mind. The first thing that comes to our mind is it helping us improve in our clinical outcome? And which is, I think, something where a lot of progress has been done. Where we need to do more work is customer experience. The long waiting hours, quick access, that's where I think technology is definitely an area where hospitals, and I think that's what Mr. Nilekani also said, need to do more work to make it a seamless experience for our patients.
Well, Dr. Lim, if you had to point out one particular innovation to watch out for, say in the next decade or when it comes to healthcare, what would it be?
So one particular innovation to improve healthcare. Right now, healthcare is very good at what we call descriptive analytics. We can tell you what happened the last few months, what's the pattern. We need to move to the other 2 parts of analytics, predictive and prescriptive. And so I hope that AI, and I think all of us are putting a lot of banking on AI, coupled with the amount of data that we generate, will get us to these next two areas. We know in this room what people have done in the last few months, what healthcare they have sought. But we don't know in this room, and we've talked about this, how many people and who in this room will develop cancer. We can say by statistics it should be 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 in India, or in where I come from in Singapore, 1 in 3 will get cancer. But who are the 3? And that's where we need the AI plus the data to get us to that, using all the tests that we have, the genomics and all that, to start predicting what's going to happen. And beyond that, we need the prescriptive analytics. So what if we know that this person is going to get cancer? It can't be a death sentence. It needs to be able to say that, look, if you do this, we can change the future, we can change the outcome for you. It doesn't have to be just cancer, it could be like diabetes, hypertension, which of the diabetics is going to develop a complication, which of the hypertensive patients is going to have a heart attack. So we need innovation, AI, I think if you ask me to choose just one, to actually mine this data, get us to the next 2 levels where we have our crystal ball staring at us, and we'll actually be able to tell the future, and not just that, but to do something about it.
Mr. Yadav, what about India? You know, predictive and precision medicine, all of it sounds as though it is a goal India would like to get to, but like Dr. Nair said, we need to fix the basics first. For India in the next decade, or what is the one innovation, or maybe a couple of steps that we need to implement in order to augment healthcare?
I'll put this response of mine in 2-3 buckets, right? So number one, we will, like, as Dr. Keith said, AI. What we are looking at is the AI will give us clinical pathways, treatment plans, and precision medicine. If that can be achieved, I think that's a big, big victory for the healthcare operators. Secondly, I think you look at now the technology has entered all our lives, right? So we have wearable devices, we have handheld ECG machines, handheld ultrasound machines, and now ICUs can be at home also. People can take their data, monitor their data, blood glucose, you don't have to take prick every time. So what we are looking is like these all innovations, patients will come to video consult or physical consult with all the data in their hand, right? That is going to change the landscape of healthcare in next 5 to 7 years' time. I think this innovation, AI, telemedicine, and all this equipment which are there for monitoring of health, it will benefit the patient and reduce the burden of hospitals also. So that the hospitals can move to ambulatory care and other works, and all high-end work happens only in the hospitals.
Well, Dr. Nair, before we wrap up and take some questions from the audience, just wanted your thoughts in terms of the changing model of healthcare shifting at home. Because we spoke about preventive healthcare. The other thing is that the waiting times that you spoke of, is that probably the next leg of innovation as well, the disruption in the model of healthcare, where it moves at home, and is that a sustainable model as well?
Okay, so, I used to say, so I teach a MPH class at the university. For the last few years, I used to tell them, yesterday's inpatient is tomorrow's outpatient. This year, I changed it a little bit. I said, yesterday's inpatient is today's outpatient. So it's shifted. And that's what I meant when I said one of the big mega trends in healthcare is going to be the shift towards ambulatory care. Now, I don't want us all to go away from this conference thinking we don't need hospitals, but we need, I think all of us need an effective out-of-hospital strategy. In some of our countries, it's happening. In some, it is not, because people are still very hospital-centric. And I also don't want us all to go away thinking that the innovation that we need to introduce in healthcare is technology or very expensive. As Keith says, we have to introduce some technology, but downstream it may give us better returns in other ways. But what we need to do is to change processes in healthcare. Technology will help us to do that. So I give an example of today what happens to a patient who comes into a hospital, right, versus a few years ago. And I'll use the example of my mother, who's 85 years old. She's got insulin-dependent diabetes. She's had cardiac surgery. She had a total knee replacement. Last year, she fell and fractured a hip, right? So she went into our hospital. And the first person who saw her was not the orthopedic surgeon, was her geriatrician. And I tell you, as we age more and more, I really hope we have more geriatricians, because they are the pediatricians for the elderly. Somebody who can coordinate all the care. We don't have enough of them, because every doctor wants to become a surgeon or an interventionist and do all these exciting things which are expensive. The geriatrician came and said that her op has to be done that afternoon, because he didn't want her in hospital for more than 2 days for a hip surgery on a 85-year-old lady. He called in his favorite orthopedic surgeon, who operates fairly bloodlessly. They evaluated her, took her off some drugs, adjusted her other drugs. She went into the OT in the afternoon. The surgeon fixed her hip in 45 minutes, right? Technically very good. That's also important. Next morning, the physiotherapist came into the ward and told her, "Auntie, can you please walk with a walker?" So my mother said, "But I just had surgery." And she said, "Believe me, the implant we put into your hip is stronger than your other hip, so you don't have to worry about it." Titanium. Got her to walk 5 times to the door and back, and signed off and said she can go home that afternoon. Physiotherapy for the next 1 month, every other day at home, and today she walks very well with a quad stick. Now, in the old days, when I was a junior doctor, hip surgery, you stay in hospital for 1 week. And by the 3rd day, you might get a lung infection and get pneumonia, because hospitals are not safe as well. So I think we have to change. So your question is very pertinent. Models of care have really got to be looked at. We've got to use hospitals for the right reason. They're very expensive. I spoke about Kaiser. There are many good models. We've got to push care out, including home care. Today, home care is absolutely doable. Yesterday, somebody, I think it was Anil, who spoke about the e-ICU, right? For that Fortis is doing. I mean, these are all examples, I think, that, so it's not technology, but a different way of thinking, changing our processes. And we need the help of the doctors, the nurses, the administrators, and the people at the back who run our IT systems and all that.
All right. Well, on that positive note of a brilliant story there, we're going to open up the audience to some questions. Maybe we can just take 3 or 4. Have somebody with a mic helping out. You know, the bosses are on the pedestal, so maybe there's some apprehension.
If you would all be so kind, I'll need to borrow 1 mic from the stage. Thank you.
As somebody working in a hospital, I wish to ask, we all ask for innovations, we ask for newer technology, and we ask for many things which we say we would use to change patient care. How happy are you all as senior leaders with the level with which we adopt any change, like say an EMR or say a new technology? I mean, the speed with which we ask, are you happy with the speed with which we adopt really into practice and get value from the same?
I think when we look at new technology, we are constantly inundated with new technology. Multiple companies will come and show us that the new machine works better, the new diagnostic kit works better. But we have to be cautious, and when we evaluate, I think the buzzword is value. What is the value of the new technology? So we have to be very clear on what quality it brings. And we have to be able to justify that in terms of patient outcome, patient improvement in terms of reducing complications, patient satisfaction, and functional outcomes. So we can't just go with the latest, sexiest piece of equipment and machinery out there, because we can get caught in a very bad spiral of just trying to be the newest kid on the block with the newest tools. And then after that, when we decide that, the next part of the value equation is what it costs. So does that translate to, we're not talking about cost savings, but it has to be cost efficiency. So when we evaluate new technologies for what quality it brings, what will it cost us and what will it cost the patient to deliver that? And that's the mental discipline we need to start thinking about in evaluating. So we can be trapped, and I've said, by the latest success technology that the marketing guys said this can market. But as healthcare providers and responsible healthcare providers who want to ensure that we have a sustainable healthcare system, we need to assess the value of that new technology and really ask ourselves, is the quality that it brings worth the cost that we have to incur to implement this and the cost that the patient will have to pay?
I think just to add, I think of course we will look at returns, etc. But to give an example, a few years back, IHH Singapore took a lead in investing in a very expensive technology, which is a proton beam. It's quite revolutionary, very expensive, and there were multiple discussions around, you know, what would be the pricing, what would be the volumes. And I think what we found here, the experience has been fantastic, because eventually, even though the pricing or the cost was very high, the capital expenditure was very high, it was first of the kind, it was installed during COVID. The end results from a patient point of view have been incredible. So the boost we've got overall to the oncology program we've had in Singapore has been incredible, and the number of patients that are appreciating that is quite high. So I think it's not always right to say that, okay, we should always look at what the initial tick is, but over a period of time, if it delivers what we're supposed to achieve out of it, I think then it's a very, very good result.
So I have a question. While panelists have unfolded very nice points around rethinking healthcare delivery and embracing disruption and embracing the future, I would like to place a question to all esteemed panelists. Nursing being the most important at the bedside 24 hours by 7, and they are facing the front line. Now, how do we embrace the disruption, at the same time support nurses at the bedside by rethinking and redefining healthcare with technology? Some thoughts from each of you would really help us, and it will inspire the nursing community who are here. Thank you.
Okay, this is one of our favorite topics, I must say, nursing, right? Because they constitute such a big part of our workforce. So, firstly, one of the big topics in nursing is a shortage of nurses, right? But again, I always tell people from my long years in healthcare, when I was a junior doctor, we were short of nurses. Today, sometimes we talk of a nursing manpower crisis, right? Indeed, it was true. I think post-COVID, all our countries had really a tough time keeping our nurses, retention. They were leaving for countries where there would be less stress, like Australia and New Zealand, I recall. But I'll tell my folks, in 20 years or 30 years, I'm willing to bet we'll still be talking about a shortage in nursing. So we have to do something about it, right? If you look at a nurse's work, if you look at a nurse's workstation, I think about 50% of the work is non-nursing. They are keying in data, usually for the doctors who don't want to use the EMR. They are doing meal orders. They are attending to patients who press the button to adjust the air conditioning. For some reason, the building automation system in hospitals never work. It's like a hotel room. Try turning down the aircon or up, it doesn't work most of the time, right? Same, hotel rooms, hospital rooms. So, we've done a number of projects. Let's look at all the work that the nurse does and try and cut out her non-nursing work. So we did a project, I recall, in Singapore, and we cut out about 20% of the work because it is non-nursing, firstly. Who takes over the work? Pharmacists, facilities management, or whatever, right? Next, we said, what does the nursing board or the Ministry of Health say about what nurses should do or should not do? And again, I use this example. When I was a houseman, doctors have to draw blood. I'm sure many of the senior doctors here will remember. We have to draw blood. Few years later, they allowed state-registered nurses to draw blood. Today, who draws blood? People whom we train 2 weeks, we call them phlebotomists, and they go and take blood, right? So we've taken that whole work away from the medical personnel. So I'm sure all of you know, we trained a group of people called patient care associates, flooded our hospitals with 400 or 500 of them, take away all the nurses' work. So when a patient walks into the ward, it's not the nurse who has to do the admission, it's a patient care associate. Patient care associate measures the blood pressure, the temperature, and all that. Doesn't need to be a nurse. Meal orders doesn't have to be a nurse. So there are so many things that you can take away from a nurse. So the point I'm making with respect to nursing is that we really got to value the nurses because there's a 10 million shortage of nurses globally. All right? And nurses are very mobile. Right? They would like to go to the other countries to get a better pay. So that we can do some nursing transformation. I think many countries are doing it to define the exact work that is required of them, and they do that. The rest should be done by others. And healthcare can give jobs to many, many people in countries, lower level jobs, healthcare assistants and all that. By the way, in our operating theaters, we are also changing scrub nurses. So there's a nurse who helps the surgeon. There's another nurse, her job is just to go and take various things and give it to the assistant nurse, right, who goes and gives. We said, why should it be done by a nurse? So we've trained technicians to assist the nurses, reduced the number of nurses needed in our operating theater as well. So the point here I'm making is that if we take a deep look at how we do things in hospitals, we can actually change and remove some of the pressure points.
While I think technology is obviously a boon in certain situations, it also comes with its own bag of challenges. When I was in the US, when we started using Epic, I thought of it as an epic fail because it wasn't really good, it was buggy. And a recent report in the Journal of General Internal Medicine has shown that use of EHR is clearly associated with physician burnout. The problem is there are unbilled hours of work which gets into the system, and unfortunately the system doesn't respect it. This is one example of consequences we are not measuring when we use technology. We need to understand that in healthcare, some steps that we take end up being bad steps. Whether it's thalidomide or Pfizer's new sickle cell drug which they pulled in the last 48 hours. So things have to be weeded out. And this probably is true for technology as well. How do we ensure that technology, our enamorment of technology doesn't take over our ability to look at it critically and say, maybe this is not the right fit, maybe I need to redo this all over again. The problem is we get so vested in the technology and so enamored with it, we sometimes are oblivious to the shortcomings of it. How do we remain in a state of equipoise where we are able to honestly look at it and say, no, this is not the way we want it, maybe it needs to be done differently?
I'm not the expert on this, but I'm just going to say that there's a whole new area in healthcare called technology assessment. All right? Some of it is led at the government level. Keith, I'm sure you're very familiar with this. Ministry of Health Singapore did it. They're encouraging private hospitals country-wide to do technology assessment before you introduce any technology. Maybe you want to say a few words on that?
Yeah, so there's this whole concept of health technology assessment, HTAs, which goes back to a little bit of what I was talking about, the value. When they assess technology, they'll determine whether or not it actually makes a difference to the patient's life and, in a way, to our doctor's life and our staff's life in terms of quality adjusted and disease adjusted life years. That's for the patients. But for staff, we look at efficiency and amount of savings in terms of man-hour and time. So you're right. When we do implement new technology, we can have it be blinded and sometimes go into it with gung-ho, with blinkers on and say this is going to really improve. And EMRs are a very good example about that, where we have all gone, because to think about it, to go from paper, and we all remember medical case notes which are this high, nobody remembers what's at the right at the bottom of it, and stuff get missed. To electronic systems where we can, in one look, everything comes out. But we have to understand that there will be times of implementation troubles, there will be difficulties implementation, and that's why there's a common phrase out there now, death by 1,000 clicks, not death by 1,000 blade cuts. And so when we implement new technology, it's always cognizant on us as the users and the people who are in charge of it to every now and then take a step back, look at your PDSA, planning development cycle, and understand, has this met its goals? Have we taken a pause in it? Is it actually getting us where we want to go? And not, if it's not, why not? So as Prem said, you assess it up front before you actually implement it through your HTA assessment, determine the cost and what it actually going to cost to the patient, to us as a system to implement. And throughout the implementation, always never take your eye off what's the ultimate goal of it. To improve efficiency, to improve patient outcomes, and then every now and then take a look at it and see what's going to happen. But most importantly, it's about also reassuring the users. We talk about Epic, and we're also implementing our C+ system. A lot of data has shown in the first year, everyone's going to hate it. Efficiency is going to go down, especially for the physicians. We're also used to talking to the patient, scribbling illegible notes that we in our handwriting that no one except us, and sometimes we can't even read. But now we actually have to take time to type, to actually, and at the same time, talk to the patient too, which is a feat in itself. But all the data has shown by 1 year, efficiency ramps up again. People get used to the system. Allied health, healthcare professionals as a whole are very intelligent people. We will adapt and in fact learn to utilize it even better. So that's what we need to understand, that new technology can be scary, it can be disruptive, but eventually if it's implemented for the right reasons, the goals will be achieved as long as we keep our eyes on it and understand what we're trying to do.
All right, well, on that note, I've got the signal to wrap up the panel. Thank you very much for listening to us this morning.
Thank you so much for that thought-provoking discussion. Just a couple of minutes. Ms. Batram, may I request you to felicitate our panelists, please? It'll come. No, sir. Such a scenario, I think I'm going to request Dr. Narayani to felicitate the panelists. Dr. Raghuvanshi, you are so kind. A round of applause, please. We're now going to take a short break to recharge with some tea. And we have some posters on display as well. But before we do that, a couple of announcements. So just please pay attention. We will be resuming in exactly 30 minutes. And we will resume our breakout tracks. We have the clinical track in Ballroom 1. And the sustainability and innovation tracks will be in Ballroom 2. For those of you who don't know, tea is laid out at the end of this room, so all you need to do is walk a little towards the back of the room. There will be people to help you find your way. So see you in 30 minutes, people. Thank you. Oh.